the thing started the very paradox. Yesterday they actually announced that the way that they're going to introduce is that even if you're fresh faced and haven't played Warframe, you can literally just play the expansion and you won't need to have any knowledge of base game. Which, considering everything I've seen from the expansion itself, even I'm still confused on a lot of it. So, like, yeah, we'll all be confused together. Let's go. So, if you haven't jumped in yet, you just jump in on that point, I guess.
That's what I say. How are they gonna actually pull that off when the game's been out for like what, 10 years now?
Yeah, I mean they're introduced literally the whole thing with the since it's like a paradox. The way that the storyline goes is that it's a completely alternate timeline, and they've made sure that the gameplay, characters that you meet, and all that are all completely different. Warframe's a very fast-paced game. For the very paradox, it's like this roguelike, souls-like, open world game with like horses, metallic knights, this mad king in a theater. Like, it's crazy.
So it has horses. So you tell me I will love this game.
Yes, I've
Okay.
showed you this. I've showed you these. I've showed you these horses.
Listen,
I've
those
shown you your brethren.
those horses, dude, look like they're from Avatar or something. I don't know. I don't know what to call them.
Well, they're kind of skeletal. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
the way
yeah.
that they are, they're really like metal memories of horses. Like, the whole thing is, from what I'm understanding, like the whole world of Deviri is like at the end of time, basically. That's
Mm.
probably that's probably why it's gonna that's probably why it's gonna make sense that you don't have to play original Warframe story, because it's gonna be way after the fact. So
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense then. All right. Let's see what we got here. All right, we're live. We're good. We sound good. We're just gonna kick this off, man. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 92nd episode of the DualShock Sense podcast. Saul and Walt will be joining us momentarily, but I wanted to get us quick started here for our 92nd episode here. We're joined for the first time, and definitely not the least, but our very own friend of the show, an acclaimed writer at lordsofgaming.net, my good friend, my fellow Xbot, Flame. How's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
they just single me out as an Xbox fan. How don't you?
Absolutely. Has to put it on Front Street, man. Come on now.
For real though, it's great to be here. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I can't wait to talk with all this great stuff that's happened over the week. That was some low key, some high key, and some funny.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I wanted to time this specifically because Octopath Traveler 2 just came out, man. And I know that you're a huge fan of Team Asano and just those turn-based games in general. So I figured it'd be the perfect time to have you jump in here. But what's up, everybody? Well, again, welcome back to the 92nd episode. Thank you for anybody that's tuning in. If you like what you see here, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, all that good stuff. But today we got a nice docket of topics for you guys today. It's going to be fun. My name is Macho, King of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy fanatic. Like I said before, Soul and Walt will be joining us here momentarily to chime in on the topics. But as usual, man, we start off with the podcast with what we've been playing. So, Flame, it might be really good just to kind of dive into our first big topic of the podcast, unless you've been playing anything else like Warframe, anything like that. But what you've been dabbling to the past week?
well, yeah, I have been playing Warframe, and something I can't really talk about, but you know what that is.
Oh,
Um,
secrets, huh? Is it an Xbox Game Pass exclusive? What's going on?
no, no,
Ah.
they're not cool enough for it. Anyways, but yeah, like, I just do my daily stuff on Warframe. It's a online MMO and all that stuff. So you know what it's like, considering you play Final Fantasy 14. Probably not so much these days because it's falling off. But anyways, and Octopath Traveler 2 is that's oh man, I'm so happy that it exists.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. I know you're farther than I am. I was just playing this morning, and I got about 6-ish hours into it. I just recruited Particio, I'm doing his first chapter, but let me know what you're thinking. I know you even played the Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, right? The mobile game. So
Yeah.
you're a bigger fan of this franchise than I am. So what's your take on part two, man? What's going on?
Oh boy, it is a much better experience than the original. Like the way that I've always described Octopath Traveler whenever I played games like Live Alive or even Champions of the Continent or Triangle Strategy last year, is that whenever I look at Octopath Traveler 1, is that it's always been like this prototype for like the 2D HD stuff. Like it had everything going for what would be that style and that type of creation, like the music, voice acting, all that kind of stuff. And literally everything in Octopath Traveler 2 feels like it reinvents the wheel. Like the character stories are much more in depth, have a lot more cohesiveness, like they feel more concise, have you can tell like there's actually like a direct influence. Like anybody that doesn't know, Octopath Traveler is basically inspired by Live Alive, and Live Alive has a villain that affects 8 different character stories. That's something they tried to do with Octopath Traveler 1 and didn't succeed to the same degree. Octopath Traveler 2, I can tell as I play, even just the second chapter of every story, then I can see exactly the influence where it's going. There's a lot of little things that I've noticed. Like, let's see. Whenever I was finishing up just Agnia's chapter, I fast traveled to another town, and whenever I exited the town, I found myself in this purplish mist along the road and everything like that. It just no warnings whatsoever. And then I fought like this skeletal, ghostly night thing, and it just felt so cool to see like main villain tampering with the world itself while you're still progressing in it, alongside seeing the influences in the story. So it's been a much better time.
Oh, that's dope. I didn't. I see. That's the one thing I was wondering as I'm going through these first chapters if there is like a main villain that we're fighting here.
Let's see, who all do you have in your party so far?
So far, just Casty, which by the way, she was the first person I chose. I love her name because it was given
Yeah,
to her by like the captain of the ship that they found her stranded in the ocean or whatever. And I love how they gave her like a nickname for Castaway. It's just Casty.
yeah.
I was like, why? What's with these names? It's so adorable. It's like one of those things I just love. But I just have Cassie so far. Agnia, I got this morning. Particio, I just met and doing his first chapter, and Hikari, which was probably the most somber of all the stories so far.
Yeah, and something about the story is like the way that you meet every character now, it feels a lot more organic because in the original they were just kind of standing in place and they were just like, "Oh, I got to go fight those pirates." And then you finish up their first chapter, they never once like even talk to one another. Even if it's still kind of stilted, like if you talk to Hikari, he never character that you're playing as never talks back to Hikari. Like he kind of just exposition dumps onto you. I'm pretty sure you've noticed that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the things I did like so far, like as you mentioned, like these party members like not interacting as much in the first game, was that Hikari would like offer, not offer, he was like say compliments um, his party members at the time, so it would be Agnia and Cassie, saying like "good job," like on the pad or something. That kind of threw me off. I was like, "What? They
They're
actually do
actually
that?"
in combat. They definitely interact with one another, and that's a
Yeah,
much needed thing. I love that so much.
yeah. Same here, same here. But as we're talking.
Macho, we cut out.
Yeah, that was my bad. That was my bad. I think the plug just came out, but yeah. So, any case, where did I leave off with? Solar coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up? So, how's it going, brother?
What's going on, man? I didn't know what was going on because you were saying something and then it just immediately stopped. So I was like, let me mute myself.
I
I thought my connection dropped out for a second. I was like, do I just listen to the podcast and just pick up where you left off?
Yeah.
no, the light on my mic just went out, and I just noticed it as I was looking down at the keyboard. I was like, "Oh wait, it might not be plugged in." But
Professional podcast,
tell
love
me
it.
about it, man.
Yep.
Tell me about it. I hate you, Flame. um,
So, hey, Soul, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Flame.
yeah, but we were just talking about the games we've been playing. We're diving deep on Octopath as our first topic here, but yeah, I mean, as far as like my experience with the game is, I played Octopath Traveler 1 and dropped it like after maybe 5 to 10 hours, I believe it was. It was just not hooking me. I feel like it was a little too archaic, a little too grindy. But we talked about before, Flame, how I missed you when you were playing the game and I was still finishing up Hogwarts Legacy. That I was really worried about the random encounters and how they're going to tackle that. And suffice to say, man, I'm really happy with the walking to fight ratio in this game. Is not overdone, and if you're running, you actually have more of a chance to actually run into enemies, which is a good way to just, if you want to level up and your characters and your get more skills and stuff like that, then you're able to do it. I think that's another great way of tackling sort of like the tradition of JRPGs, or rather RPGs from Japan here, with the turn-based mechanic
God,
and
are we gonna get into that too?
yeah, yeah, we are. I wanted to tread that lightly there. But in any case, yeah. So I think it does a good job of it, of giving you a good like walking to battle ratio that I was really not feeling with Octopath 1. But what are your thoughts on it? Cuz I know you didn't play the Bravely Default games, right?
I played a little bit of 2, and I dropped that game because I'm sorry, I just do not like the presentation. Whenever the cutscenes were happening, it felt like I was watching a Muppets play.
Ah,
It was
don't
just the way that
don't tell
I'm
me
sorry, like
that.
I'm sorry. I love Team Asano, and I know they make those games too. It's just I don't like the presentation for those games. The chibis just throw me off, and the cutscenes just don't feel right to me. Um,
Yeah, no,
this is about the
that's
random encounters,
understandable.
right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no, no, that's understandable. I mean, I think the first game is a masterpiece, but I understand where you're coming from on that. But yeah, the random encounters in Bravely Default, at least, you're able to have a slider, and you're able to adjust whether you actually do want to grind or not, or if you just want to explore a dungeon completely without any, fuss. But here, it's Octopath. It's a lot more traditional.
Well, in a way, like there are some ways to tone down how many times you can fight enemies. Obviously, there are ways to fight more enemies. Like I found an item called the Alluring Ribbon, where it literally increases the chances of enemies encountering you, which is good for grinding. But if you level up the scholar, sorry, if you get support skills for the scholar, you can actually get this passive ability called evasive maneuvers, which actually reduces the chances of being attacked, so you can walk around more, enjoy the world a little bit more instead of always just 10 seconds walking around, bam, enemy encounter, and then you're there for like a minute or two, that kind of stuff.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I mean, the world's just gorgeous, and I
Oh
found
yeah.
myself not running around at all, just to really take in like all the beauty of it, dude. I said before, it feels like a dream playing this game. It doesn't feel real.
No, like Agnia's entire like section of the map, like her town, every area surrounding it, dude, it is so freaking gorgeous. I don't know how they pulled off this kind of art with this game, especially on the Switch, because we know there's problems with that platform. So, kudos to the team that actually had to pull this off on that console.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like just having this game blow up on my OLED is just it's incredible. Honestly, like it's one of the reasons why I got the PS5 version, because on PC I can't do OLED. On Switch I can, but like we all know what Switch can really do in terms of performance, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and especially with the little stuff that you can tweak, or just even just the way it presents itself when it's being stretched onto a 4K TV, just not good.
Yeah.
Take that from Triangle Strategy, right? That game is gorgeous when you're playing on handheld, but when you stretch it on a 4K TV, it's like ugh. Um,
Yeah.
but with for
Yeah.
Octopath, man, it's just so crispy on a PS5. It's again, it plays like a dream. I can't believe that it's like a game I'm actually playing because it's like what we imagined in our heads from these type of games 10, 20 years ago, how they looked. But now they're just done in a completely like polished state. It's incredible.
It's so weird. Like I actually said that to my brother. Like this is the kind of game I wish we had when I was kind of growing up. Like 6 or 7 years of age, playing on a little Game Boy instead of doing chores or being a contributing member of society, and still haven't achieved that second part as an adult, but still.
We're getting there. It's a slow crawl for both of us, my man.
Damn video games.
But dude, tell me about this soundtrack.
Oh
Jesus
my god.
Christ, dog. Just opening up the
It's
menu is insane, but just tell me about it. Because I know you're as big of a fan of the music in this game as I am for Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts. So just go all in, man. Tell me about what you think about it, your favorite themes, whatever it is. Just go in, man.
the way the soundtrack surprises you. And what I mean by that is the fact that if you fight, say, Hikari's first boss theme that they use for it, it is a very somber, cello focused kind of tone, like a very somber tone to it, right? And it fits so well with the way that they have it go because you're at night, you're fighting him on this like ledge and everything like that. I'm trying not to spoil, but it's hard to describe it without describing how the music feels whenever you're seeing just the scenes in general. And then going right to Casty's boss fights, which are like these two monsters in a cave, and instead it's like this very hype like soundtrack that just feels like it's ripped from like I want to say like a final fight in a Final Fantasy game. Like it feels so damn incredible. Like the way the soundtrack just comes out of nowhere and just sets the entire scene. Like whenever you get your boat right, you would think like it would just have a normal like boss, sorry, not boss fight, regular battle themes and like that. But instead, it's this kind of like sea shanty thing that's actually been in one of the trailers. I think it was like the Scholar and the Merchant trailer. The thing that the song that was being used at the very end of the trailer, it was like don't want to sound it out because that would be kind of cringe, but dude, the entire soundtrack from front to back, just battling, let alone just walking around the world, and the fact that the night and day cycle has their own OST as well. Like the fact that whenever you're just switching between one or the other, it can either be a normal, like an Agnes Village, like a normal warm feeling song, and then whenever you switch to night, it's this soft chanting, just this song that just feels very, very homey, very
Like lullaby-ish, right?
melodic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's why that's one of my favorite things in JRPGs from like this era that we're seeing. And for me, it really started like with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 on the Wii, when you would be traversing an entire landscape, and it would be big enough where like it will switch to nighttime. So you would hear like the rambunctious and like super crazy day theme of what's it called? It's not Garland Plains, it's something else. But then it'll switch over to night, and then you get like this very soft sort of lullaby, sing you to sleep kind of song that will just play while you're traversing the areas. And we're seeing that a lot more now. I was so happy to see that in Octopath too, but to
Yeah.
see it in the main menu too, I was like, there's a night
Yep.
theme for the main theme of the game.
They know what they're doing. They know what most people are there for now.
100%, dude. It's, as I said before, like I'm blown away just by the music itself. It's so encapsulating, and I think it's like it really speaks to like the magic of these games, from what we fell in love with, from everything from like Chrono Trigger to Final Fantasy VII to again all the other classics there, like Legend of Dragoon, all that good stuff there. But
Yep.
but yeah, man. Ben, so is there anything more you want to say about Octopath 2?
Let me look at my notes real quick. I took some notes.
Yeah, because I know we didn't really get into like the battle system, which was like an evolution of Octopath and I would say Bravely Default. Like the BP system is definitely from Bravely Default with the stacking your attack boost, stuff like that. The only difference for Octopath and Bravely Default though is that you can't stack uh, BP manually, which you could do in that game. You just hit the L button and you just stack up a whole bunch of defense points that you can use, and you have the four characters, you're able to like strategize around that. But in here in this game, you actually have to wait a turn to stack BP in order to do multiple actions in one turn.
Well, yeah, but there's little things to get around that, like the merchant partitio that you have, for instance. His latent power, we'll get to that later, allows you to instantly fill the BP gauge for him, like just by using it. And he literally has an ability. He literally has like a passive ability that refills his latent power after every battle. You can just instantly go in with like this instantly fill with like all the BP that you need. So if you're using him like, as a scholar or a cleric and you want to use a magic ability, for instance, you can just go in with instantly four stacked BP
Wow,
spell,
that's
or even
broken.
just like a regular. Yeah, yeah, it's very good for grinding. Let's see. Let's just go over the lane power because that's the main change in the new combat system. The latent power is basically like a limit break, where every character has a unique thing that they can do with each of their latent powers. Like Throne is able to act twice in a turn, which I actually found to be very useful when fighting bosses because bosses will sometimes glow purple and say like, "Oh, it's about to do something bad," and then I can be like, "Okay, I'm gonna use her twice to kind of help break him so he doesn't do his ultimate attack." Which never let them do that. Never take the risk, please, guys. It's not worth it. And then the only one that I found that's not that useful because his kit doesn't match it. Temenos has latent power that allows him to. Oh well, Temenos the cleric and Throne was the thief. I just want to differentiate that. For Temenos, he has the ability to hit weak points on enemies without needing a specific weakness. So you can basically hit them four times and lower their shield points down by four because he doesn't have any other attack that's like, say for instance, Akari's like 3 to 8 hitting sword slash ability. Like he doesn't have anything like that unless you use that specifically, but he doesn't have like the physical attack to match that kind of build. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of latent power doesn't feel like it matches him that much, but that's about it.
Okay. All right. Nice. Nice. So have you gotten all the characters at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mori, I'm finishing up their third chapters right now.
Oh, nice. Okay. How long is that runtime?
So far it's around like 33 hours. I've found little exploits to get more XP and more points and all that kind of stuff. There's now two cactuar or metal slime ish enemies now. Like there's the usual like cats, like the cates. I'm sure you'll find them eventually. Those give like a lot of job points and a good amount of XP. But now there's like these little squids that have like, this is kind of funny. They have a cowboy hat on and a hobo bag on the end of a stick of Octopath Travelers, and they're adorable. But
Literally Octopath Travelers. I love it.
yeah, and they give like a metric ton of XP and a good amount of points as well. So, and there's actually there's items that help spawn rate and all that kind of stuff. Like it's really, really great. Like I just love farming in general. Like the combat system's so much fun, and just seeing those kinds of enemies pop up every now and then just feels like a nice reward.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's the one. I'm glad you said that because the accessibility of the game and just the streamlined aspects of it are very, very good. The ability to pause cutscenes or have like a little bar at the bottom to tell you to fast forward or to play it automatically, so you have to keep pressing a button. Speeding up battles, like all that kind of stuff is the stuff I look for in those games now. From at least so that they are like harboring to like a older sort of time for games. And I'm
Yeah.
glad to see it in here full stride. And Team Asana was very good at that kind of stuff, which is why I was so surprised Octopath 1 was such a faithful version of like those kind of games. Whereas like something like Triangle Strategy was way more forgiving.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm not liking about Octopath 2 is that they didn't improve the side quest system. Like the way that it functions like a Dark Souls kind of thing where the characters will talk about what they need and all that stuff, but you'll never know what to do specifically. You have
Oh
to like
right, I got a
figure
couple
it
of those
out.
in Cassie's chapter, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, I need help finding an item, but you don't know if it's day or night or where it is." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. Like they'll do their best to explain it, but it never really works as well as I would like it to be. That's kind of the only thing I think they could have improved on, but I understand why some people would really just love those kinds of systems. Could be like, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna explore the world and see what I need to get for, this character and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's more like it filters into the world building aspect of the game, where you know the core focus is just exploring and finding the 8 characters. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of characters, for everyone else that's thinking like, oh, the only interactions that they've added are in combat. No, there's actual side stories with the characters themselves. Um, and they kind of hinted at that with their like merchant and scholar or cleric and thief or hunter and apothecary trailers that they released early on. Like there's actual side stories involving those pairs of characters. They're amazing. I love just hearing them actually talk to one another and go on their little adventure. And some of it fits into the main story, and some of it's just kind of for fun. I'm not gonna spoil it or anything, but it's really nice. I think it's gonna happen. I think after you finish a couple of chapters in their stories respectively, and then they'll just like pop up on the map itself, and you just want to do it with both of them. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I like the aspect of you can really approach these stories how you want. You know,
Yeah.
because I'm on the eastern. Is eastern? No, I'm on the western part of the world, and that's where you can recruit Particio and Casti and all of the characters that are there. I think there's like 4 of them, and then the other side is where the other lay about. But I'm glad that you do have the option to choose. Like, hey, if I wanted to see Cassie's next chapter, it's right there. But also, if I do want to go to Agnia's next chapter, I might have to get that ship. So like, depending on how much
Yeah.
you really like it.
Yeah.
But I from what I saw in your tweet too that you got wrecked when you got a ship and you decided to go to the other side of the world.
Yeah, they didn't explain that very well. Like, to to get your ship, you have to. I mean, obviously, this isn't like a spoiler thing, but part of Paticio's story is that he has like this scent of commerce where he goes out and finds like unique things in the world to buy, and one of them's the ship, and it's literally boat mode from Dragon Quest or um any game that has like a boat or anything like that. It costs a lot of money. You're able to do, and the level that they set to get the ship is like level 1, just whatever reason, even though it's like in a level 20 area to get to.
Hmm.
Then whenever you go out on the sea, it says level 34 enemies. I'm like, okay, I'm going right back to the dock.
And you can demolish even an enemy's like 4 levels above you.
Yeah, but I was like level 20, so I'm not gonna take my chances.
That's
I mean, I'm
wild.
good now. I'm like level 40 or something like that with most characters. So,
Okay. Wow, that's insane. But yeah, man. Is there anything else you want to touch on Octopad 2?
nothing yet. Like the only thing I'm really hoping to see is I mean, I'm pretty sure you've seen it where, like in the first game, the main villain has to be unlocked with the side quest. I'm hoping that main villain in this game just kind of unlocks after all the character stories because that would be
Interesting.
very annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. And you're writing a review for this game, right?
Eventually, yeah. Whenever I'm done with it.
And with JRPGs, you just had to kind of like take your time. Like I remember when I was at Lords of Gaming, I was reviewing Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and the EIC at the time gave me at least a month to play it, or they gave me the time, but like I want to give myself like at least like the month to get through it because it is a big game. So, from what I've heard, you got quite an endeavor ahead of you.
Oh yeah, I welcome it. I welcome
Yeah,
it.
yes sir, yes sir.
How long is the game?
From what I've seen, they said like the normal playthrough would be like 70 hours, and then completion is like 100 hours plus, which I think is fair. It's not too bloated.
Sure, sure.
Right,
I'm not
man.
feeling the time right now. Like I'm actually kind of every time I save and I'm only on like 34 hours, I'm like, really? It's only been 34 hours?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
across the same feeling actually. When I just wrapped up Agni's storyline, I saved it's like 6.5 hours. I'm like, what? It's been I've been playing for like that much already.
Yep.
That's the best though, when you don't even like realize how much time has gone by.
Seriously,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. If that's it for Octopath 2, man. Let's jump into Soul, man. He's been patient and quiet here. Uh, Good morning, good sir. Tell us what you've been playing, dog.
Absolutely nothing.
Second
Oh
week in a
God.
row, man. Jeez, you and Walt are on
Yeah, man.
fire, dog.
Yeah, I don't know, nothing's really speaking to me right now. Um, but the thing that I did do, which was actually last night, I don't know if you guys has anyone here watched the cinematic masterpiece that is RRR?
Oh, why does that sound so
What?
familiar? No, I have not though.
It's the like Indian sort of like Bollywood movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember seeing this like a clip of this, but oh man.
Is it just
So
called RRR?
yes, it's just
Yeah.
called
Yeah,
RRR.
literally, yeah. Yeah, wow.
Huh.
Bollywood
It's a
movies slap too, man.
it's a 3 hour movie. Um, and it is the most like over the top Hideo Kojima type like nonsense that I've ever
Oh
seen.
no.
Um, there's literally
Is
and
it
I
Hideo
wanted
Kojima in a good way or bad way? Because there's some
um
people who think that's good.
just in the
Some.
sense of just like action scenes that are like it don't make sense like in the laws of physics. They just don't make sense, but they're funny. So so it's like that gets a thumbs up by me. Um, I really wanted Walt to be here specifically because there are scenes in this movie that remind me of Yakuza in the sense
Oh
of
my god.
there was this big action scene at the end of the movie where like the two main characters are in this forest like battling against these soldiers, and one of the main characters literally lifts up a motorcycle and starts fucking like swinging it around his
Oh
head
my god.
and
That's
is just
awesome.
beating the crap out of the soldiers. It's absolutely hilarious. So the basic premise, I feel like I should like say that for people who don't know. It takes place during the sort of time period where England was like, I don't know if occupying is the right word, but was kind of like, they were in India and they were kind of like taking it over and whatnot. And, they had the entire population as slaves and all that stuff. One of the main characters, his little sister has been like kidnapped by like the English Empire. So his whole thing is like trying to rescue her and get her back. While the other main character is he's actually like a soldier, like an Indian soldier who's like working underneath the British Empire, but his whole thing is that he's kind of like a double agent, so he's like trying to get the trust of the English Empire, while at the same time he's like trying to supply the Indian people with weapons to start a revolution against the English crown, essentially. Um, but the whole thing is that like the other guy who's trying to get his sister back. These two main characters ultimately become best friends, but the main thing is that he doesn't know that the other guy is like actually like with the British Empire. So he's just working under the assumption that this guy is like, you know, just he's a totally normal dude or whatever that happens to be really really fucking strong. But yeah, that's basically like the main like idea of the story, and it's really just like a beautiful story about like these two dudes being the best of friends. Like there's legit like a montage of them just like almost like riding in the sunset, like shots like that, doing squats together, working out together.
So you tell me this
Does
speaks to
sound
my
like
Kingdom
Yakuza.
Hearts nature. You're telling me this is something I like.
Oh, almost, yeah. um, yeah, it's just it's really it's again it's just two bros like being the best of friends. There's almost like a musical aspect to it too, because there's like multiple scenes where these two dudes are like there's like a ballroom scene, and it's literally just these two dudes like showing all these English people how to like truly dance, and it's absolutely hilarious. Um, and I don't know, dude. It's just like again, the action is just like it's absolutely insane, and it's like one of those movies where like I one of the best like just in terms of so I should also explain this is that it originally released on Netflix, but for whatever reason it's doing like a select sort of like release in theaters now as sort of like a fan celebration because I'm assuming it did so well on Netflix. So it's only in theaters for like a limited time. And like Macho, like I kid you not, this was like almost as good of a theater experience as Endgame was for me
Oh
because
wow.
there were
Really?
legit like anime level entrances where like characters are like just arriving to like a battle scene and like the crowd in the theater are like standing up and cheering, dude. The musical sequences, literally everyone would be like clapping to like the beat of the song. Like it was just so like again, just in terms of like the theater experience, like it was so fun, dude.
You can't really deny like the energy of Bollywood movies, man. I haven't
Oh,
seen a
absolutely.
whole ton, but I just know when they hit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was and again, this is my first Bollywood movie, but I am sort of familiar with the director because his last I think his last movie or one of his movies is like the Balu Bali movies and specifically I think Balu Bali 2 has this scene that like I'm gonna have to send it to you guys at some point, but it's literally this like this scene where these people these soldiers like tie themselves almost to or they don't tie themselves but they're like they bend this like palm tree down to like so it's like touching the ground and these soldiers like get onto the palm tree and they're holding the palm tree like by like a rope and they cut the fucking rope and then the palm tree launches these soldiers up into the air um
That's
over
amazing.
this like wall so like the soldiers could like infiltrate over the like enemy walls or whatever. It's absolutely hilarious. But again, it's like that sort of stuff that's like doesn't make sense in terms of like the laws of physics, but it's like is it funny? Is it cool? Hell yeah. So let's just put it in the movie. Um so yeah, it's so good, man. It's so funny. There was this scene where one of the main characters got like in prison. He got captured by like the English Empire, and he's like in solitary confinement. So he's like literally in like a tiny cell underground, and the other dude has to break him out. And literally, again, this goes back to the Yakuza stuff. This is like a solid iron like gate that is like locking this dude, and the guy just like puts both hands around the bars and literally just screams, and he rips out the iron gate out of the ground, dude, no problem. And then the guy who's like trapped in there, like he was like beaten, so like he can't walk. The other dude, literally puts the guy who's like in underground on his shoulders, so they're like literally not piggyback, but like literally just like the other guy is like sitting atop his shoulders and like they're running away while all these soldiers like chasing after him And the dude who's like sitting on top of the other one's shoulders, who can't use his legs, he like double wields these goddamn rifles, and it's just like firing like off all these I guess all these soldiers, and then he like lowers his guns for the guy who's like holding him up to like reload them, and then he just goes back to like dual wielding them. It's just, again, it's just the most like batshit insane stuff, dude.
I'm about
And
to
then
check it
like
out.
yeah, it's hilarious. And then, like before that scene, the guy who got like imprisoned, he was kept in like another cell, but like the king of the English Empire or whatever, he's like getting like a tour of the prison, and he's like, I want to see this specific guy. And then he goes and then he visits the cell of the second main character, and literally as the camera like pans in there, and you're just expecting this guy, because the soldiers are bragging about like, oh yeah, we barely fed this guy, we barely him any water, blah blah blah. And then as they finally reach this guy's cell, you just see him like his hair is longer, his beard is like bushier. You just see him literally just doing like pull-ups on like using his chains, doing pull-ups, and like literally the crowd is just like fucking cheering in the theater because it's just like the most badass thing. And then you look at the look on the face of like the English king. He's like, what the and then that's when he
What
makes
in
like
the
the
world?
decision to put him in like solitary confinement. But yeah, dude, it's just the most hype, like again, insane action sequences don't make sense, but they're fun. The movie ever. It's really good. If you could sit through the 3 hours, then I recommend it. And then also like the thing about it is that like, yes, it's over the top. It's, Hideo Kojima levels esque of you know action sequences that don't make sense, and blah blah blah. But like the story is, and again, the characters are really like endearing. Like you really get behind both of these characters sort of motivations, and like again, that tension of like one character is like a double agent, but he can't tell the other character that what he's secretly doing, or else his whole plan of trying to supply the whole entire Indian population with weapons could be discovered. And um so that whole tension of like one side not knowing what the other side is like truly doing, and then once that thing actually does happen, once the other character does actually find out that the other one is like working with the English Empire, it's like you actually do feel that like heartbreak of the other character, feeling like he's been like betrayed, because they've been like best friends for this entire movie. And like it's just like stuff like that shouldn't work. It shouldn't feel like, you shouldn't feel like that behind these characters, just because of like how ridiculous the action sequences are. You shouldn't feel like there's actual stakes in this movie, again, just because of how nonsense everything else is. But you actually do, you actually feel for these characters. You actually like, I don't know, man. It's really good. The characters are really really good. It's really easy to root for them and get behind them, just because of how endearing all these people are. So yeah, RR is fantastic. It's unlike anything I've really seen before. I would recommend it to everyone, but at the same time, I don't think it's for everyone. But yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I've been up to. I guess like a little bit of Hogwarts Legacy, but like my opinion has not really changed on that. But yeah, that's it for me, really.
Nice, man. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, as far and just to kind of round off what I've been doing at Octopath Traveler 2 and Hogwarts Legacy. I ended up finishing that last weekend, and it's fantastic. I again, it's one of my favorite. It's gonna be one of my favorite games of the year for sure. I think it ended in a very anticlimactic and epic sort of way. It was weird. It ended like in a Harry Potter movie sort of way, where like there was a epic finale to this grand story you're kind of venturing through the entire game, but then it just ends, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I gotta wait for the next thing. But the things we don't know if the next thing's gonna happen for Hogwarts Legacy. We don't know if there's gonna be any DLC. So it's kind of weird that it kind of just ends pretty abruptly. But there are character moments and there are character closures after the main story that really do hit. I would say the best thing about Hogwarts Legacy is not only just the world and traversing, and I really love the combat too, but it's absolutely the side characters. Natsua, Sebastian, and Poppy. I just love those characters. I feel like they're really great. alongside the Hermione's and Ron. Ron's kind of a dick, so he's not really that great of a character. But besides the Hermione's and Harry's, like I think like Poppy, Sebastian, and Natsuo are really great characters. I love their twists and turns throughout the entire story. And on top of that, it's really cool to see Sammy's reaction to all this stuff too, because she's such a huge Harry Potter fan, and she's loving the characters and like how she's like exploring their character stories and just the world itself. It's really cool to see her experience through a different pair of eyes there. It's really nice. But yeah, that was good. But yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned RRR, so because I've been on the big movie binge lately. I just finished Creed 1 and 2. I want to go see the third one eventually. Absolutely love those movies. I was watching Catch Me If You Can yesterday. That's another great sort of chase sort of movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. If anyone's watch it, it's on HBO Max, so I highly recommend it. But I'll check out RRR because I want to check that out. And then one of my favorite movies from a past time, which is Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I want to dive more into these like super long movies that really take you on a journey. So RR sounds like something that's up my alley right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You absolutely should. And you should have Sammy watch it with you too, man. It's a really good time. Really good time.
That might be in the cards. We won't be doing it tonight because we're heading out to karaoke, but we'll see if we could sneak it in sometime.
Definitely. Nice. Hell yeah, dude. So that's it for you, right?
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it.
And Flame already talked about his games that he's been playing.
I think that's it. Yeah, you're just doing Warframe and Octopath, right? And then the other game you say you can't talk about.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, let's move into. I mean, we've already knocked out the Octopath 2 topic. Let's get into. I mean, this is a Square Enix heavy podcast right here.
I'm
Let's
telling
move
you, man, it
into.
was that kind of week. I don't know, unless you wanted to talk about
It was a
something
slow
else,
week,
but
man. It was a slow week.
yeah.
But let's talk about Luminous Productions, man, because that was
You
I
hear
don't know.
Flame just start to laugh.
Jeez, yeah, goddamn. I don't know if I can entirely say that it was like. So, no, you know what? I'm still a little bit shocked by how quick it was, I think. But essentially they got folded into the wider Square Enix company, and correct me if I'm kind of like misunderstanding here, but like Luminous itself is like no more, right? Like that name is gone. They're just inside Square Enix now, right?
That's the biggest question, right, Flame? Because we've seen a lot of YouTube headliners or even articles being like, "Oh, Luminous Productions has shut down," but that's not really the specific case. I mean, we could make that assumption because essentially what it is that Square Enix Company and Luminous Productions were two subsidiaries of Square Enix Holdings. So essentially, Luminous is being just absorbed into Square Enix Company, as far as I can recall. So I'm not sure if they're going to be a separate studio within that company, similar to like how Final Fantasy 14 team is or a Team Asano's team is, or if they're just going to be literally absorbed and kind of scattered throughout the company. But Flame, what did you take from that?
Well, Soul said this happened way too fast. Like usually it would be like maybe 6 months down the line if the game doesn't sell well, they'll fold them. But holy crap! It was like what 3 weeks and a half, and it was gone. I was like, man, that is way too quick. Like that was a very decisive thing.
Yeah, yeah.
They were watching the studio like a hawk.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Like, because I feel like this isn't something that just happens, in the 3 weeks. Like, this had to be something that they were kind of like building up towards for like a couple months now. Like, they've been definitely like thinking about this for some time. I feel like, because there's no way
Yeah.
you can make that decision so quick, right?
Yeah. And the way that I'm looking at it from the language that I've read, it's going to be kind of like when Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob got absorbed into Activision itself,
That's
where they'll
exactly what I
no
was thinking. Yeah.
they no longer have creative autonomy. And that's very sad because at the end of the day, like even if Forspoken was something.
Was good. His
He,
That's
it was
wild.
still there was still some creative vision behind it. There was still something that they wanted to make, and the fact that it basically sunk the studio that quickly is unlike anything I've seen in so long.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean the
I've
thing.
seen crazy stuff, but this is craziest I've seen.
Yeah, the thing that kind of made me conclude that they were being shut down or just absorbed into other teams was when they had the notice of like, hey, don't worry, we're working on the Forspoken update and the DLC for the summer. That's still coming. Because if they weren't being shut down, quote unquote, then why you don't even need really to make that announcement. That'll be assumed anyway.
I think it was just to make sure people didn't like weren't gonna be like for people that were legitimate fans of Forspoken didn't feel like they were gonna lose their DLC. Like the one thing that they were probably looking forward to after the fact. Like pretty sure you and me can kind of feel this on an existential level that when there was like a Final Fantasy 15 stream like so long ago whenever they announced like the cancellation of episode Luna Freya, Noctis, and can't remember the other episodes, but there was a couple of more DLC that they wanted to do for Final Fantasy 15, but they said we have to cancel and move on to the next game.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's kind of I think they wanted to make sure that people didn't feel like that was a repeat of that because it feels like this is kind of the same process. Like Final Fantasy 15 sold off the Final Fantasy name alone, but Forspoken's a new IP and there's a lot of controversy. So whenever it didn't sell well, didn't have anything to fall back on. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to note too that because I know there's some contentions on Twitterverse, man, with a lot of people were just, including me, that were just like, yeah, this is absolutely a bad news thing because we've never seen this done before, and it only kind of the bad performance and critical reception of Forspoken, and I don't know if we can say financially, but I think we could safely assume because that game charted for a little bit, but not too much. It wasn't entirely successful. I think we can conclude that, but a lot of people were saying that not a lot of people but just like a select group of people were saying that this is actually a good thing, that they're being absorbed and that they're essentially they got acquired, quote unquote, and that's not the case whatsoever. Like at
yeah, it's not an
all.
acquisition. It's Luminous was a separate thing, and as we both learned from that one video that we watched, Forspoken itself was once a concept created for the Luminous engine advertisement
Right.
itself. So this studio was made along with its engine, and
With veteran devs from everything
yeah,
from Kingdom Hearts to Final Fantasy, all veteran developers, with some new ones being like that are heading like new IP or the case maybe are put into charge. Maybe they're with Square Enix for some time and got moved up. But point is, like all these developers from Luminous Productions were in-house Square Enix devs.
yeah. And the one thing that would really grind my gears, like, here's the thing, I'm kind of if the game didn't sell well and there's been so much controversy around it, I don't necessarily want to say like, oh, this was, good because, screw this game and all that kind of stuff. Because like I said, there was a creative vision behind it. At least at one point, it feels like it might have wavered. Whenever Square had this recent focus to focus on Western or global audience, which is why they made it into an isekai game and had a woman from New York and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that might have conflicted with the overall thing they wanted to do with the game. And that's probably why it didn't do well narratively because they probably had to rework the story like, so many times, like a Final Fantasy 15 or Halo Infinite to a degree. So I don't want to say like, oh, this is good, this was a bad game because I don't think this was the original vision at all. So I feel for the developers that spent a lot of years making this game lose it all within like a month. That's just depressing. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I know. We joked back and forth in the DMs like we
Yeah.
we can class studios. We do our thing
Sharing images of her face saying, "I just killed this studio with my freaking game."
with my freaking mind. Yeah, yeah, I know, because we go back and forth because we joke around, but legitimately, I think like this was bad news for Luminous Productions, but good news
Yeah.
for those developers because it's what I was explaining too on for to a couple people that were I was going back and forth on Twitter is that it's bad for the studio. Well, in my opinion, I'm just glad that these guys aren't going to be working on the next Final Fantasy game because they can't tell a story at all, and that was evident in 15
Yeah.
and Forspoken.
Sheesh.
They can't, man. It's bad. It's really bad. They made the
The-
same as from Final 15. The mistakes that were in there, where they've just backloaded all of like the you know the main crux of the story and the twists and all that stuff. All of that was like in the last couple chapters of 15. They did the exact same thing with Forspoken. So
I mean, my whole thing with this is that like kind of to what Flame was talking about with Vicarious Visions is that like it just sucks that like now like they're more than likely going to be relegated to like a support team now. You
oh, they
know?
are. Yeah, no, they're a support studio
Yeah.
from now. Yeah,
That
Yeah.
sucks, dude.
yeah.
That really sucks. To having your own autonomy and creative freedom to make your own original game, and now to and literally a few weeks after that game releases to have that all kind of stripped away from you sucks. I wouldn't be surprised that this is Nomura's studio, right?
No, 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 that's not his studio.
No.
No.
Okay. I thought there was like some high profile Square Enix guy that was like leading that place.
Well, at first it was Hajime Tabata, who's the director of
Bada,
15.
that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, the
Yeah,
director.
he
He's
left.
no,
He left.
okay.
Flame. Did he leave after the wave of DLCs?
I think so,
Like
yeah.
after
Because I think the
Comrades?
only thing from that Final Fantasy stream was the fact that they announced that our next game is going to be made with the Luminous engine and goodbye, basically.
Yeah, yeah. He bounced like right after that project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So where I was going with that was that like yeah, so Tabata's no longer there, but like I would expect you'll probably see some departures of guys who are like, I don't want to be a support a part of a support team, so I'm just gonna go and maybe move to other parts of Square Enix or just leave Square Enix altogether. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, that's what
Uh,
I was thinking too. That a lot of developers in Luminous Productions, again, we're vets, and that's why I say it's a good thing for Square Enix entirely because of the fact that those developers are going to go to projects that more than likely need them, and for like the pipeline that they have. So, and they're going to consider all that experience going into the next project, which is good because like those are talented developers. But like you said, so some may just end up leaving because they don't want to be a support studio for the next Final Fantasy 7 remake game or whatever, or for Final Fantasy 17 or whatever the case may be. But will be in,
which
yeah.
oh go ahead.
No, no, go for it, go for it.
Well, just really quick, which I don't think is entirely a bad thing because like, and I think you're seeing this with Sony with like a lot of their some of their purchases, but also just teams that they build from scratch, like Malaysia Studio or Valkyrie Entertainment, where like you need support teams as well as like own independent studios that you acquire, like the House Marks or the Blue Points or whatever, because these games are getting so big. I mean, look at God of War Ragnarok and how many support teams were on that game. So like, and I feel like you can apply that to Final Fantasy with these games just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So like, it might not be the worst thing in the world to have like an additional full man team come into in the future. I mean, possibly with Rebirth, have them acting as support to sort of like offload, just the gargantuan task of development that game probably will be.
I'm so glad you said that because that was my exact thinking when reading this. I was like, okay, good. There's gonna get more support for these games because look what happened last year, where we had Star Ocean 6, Harvest Stella, Valkyrie Elysium. All these games were releasing from Square Enix in the last half of the year that just didn't look that great and could have used more time in development of it. And it could have been because of manpower, because they didn't have enough people. But now having support studio to actually chime in into those games to make them more special than just random drops in an October month or something like that, or a November month alongside the Pokemon game, or whatever the case may be. They can be a little bit more special now that they have more people involved.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, man, it is. I think overall pretty sad. That like a single game, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is Luminous's like first release, right, as a studio.
Second,
Second.
they worked on 15. This was their first like major IP where they could have proved themselves that they can make AAA games for Square
Were
Enix.
were they the main developer on 15?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
because
So
you can literally tell just by looking at 15 that it literally is like the exact same kind of style and way that things were developed. Like it, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I saw it, I felt like, oh, Final Fantasy 15 next gen version, let's go. And then I was like, no, it's just another game. Never mind. Like
Abs-
whenever I saw Project Athia, sorry.
no, you're not wrong. Like it's that's what I'm saying. The Forspoken's mechanics are good. Like the gameplay aspects are good. It feels like it does feel like a more refined 15 combat system, but with just more parkour and magic. It's incredible. Like for what you can unlock there, but it's really plagued by bad design and just a lot of other things that just really bring down what could have been an amazing game. And I think a lot of that has to do with the engine and COVID just absolutely impacting everything, and a lot of change, like you
Yeah.
said, Flame, that just happened with the course. Like it just, the news just came out like a week or two ago, right? That Gary Whitta said that what he offered to Square Enix, the story, was completely not like what he actually left at the table. It was very different.
Oh,
oh man, I
well,
would say the same thing too. I would say, listen,
yeah.
listen, guys, everything in that game wasn't me.
Well, I'm glad he
Damn.
washed his hands of it. I want to know if that other writer that they hired, what was it, some girl from TikTok or something like that? They kept on like ripping on in Marvel movies, and it's like I don't think you can really speak on this. Please don't. No more.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like the
yeah, I know what
filthy
you're
Frank
talking
meme. It's
about.
just time to stop. It's time to stop. Okay.
Yeah, it's just that game just plays with a whole bunch of problems. I mean, Flame, when we talked about it, we said I said to you before that one, I don't want this team working on the next Final Fantasy game if they ever get that chance, and two, I don't see Square Enix coming out of this situation and being like, okay, yeah, this is fine, like just work on the next game. You know, I did not see that coming at all for the studio. So I knew something was going to happen either one way or another, but a full on like being submerged into Square Enix, the company itself, was
Yeah.
something I didn't expect this early on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Or were you gonna say something, Floyd?
I was just gonna say like yeah, that was just way too quick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, for sure. No, and again, I think the saddest thing is that like two releases in, and that something like this can happen to you after just releasing two games is kind of, it's kind of wild, man. It's kind of wild.
Well, two super expensive games, man. Two incredibly expensive games. I mean, 15 had the marketing like we never
True.
seen for a Final Fantasy game ever.
I
You
guess
know.
I guess the one solace here is that they didn't like, at least to our understanding, that they didn't just shutter the entire studio. These
Yeah.
people will, in a sense, get to keep their jobs, but it's just really the name Luminous Productions that that got shuttered essentially.
Yeah, that's why I was
So
confused. People were like, "It's shut down the studio." I'm like, not necessarily. They're keeping the devs,
yeah,
but they
yep,
just lost autonomy.
yep. So yeah, it's rough, man. Again, this industry, I think, proving once again that like, not that it's unsustainable, but it's just really hard out here, man, especially in this era where like you pour so much time and resources into a single project, and like if that doesn't hit, that could be your last, honestly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's this the industry has gotten massive at this point. Like we literally just saw Callisto Protocol, which is supposed to be a Dead Space spiritual successor,
Yeah.
come out and literally get overshadowed a month later by Dead Space remake itself.
Yeah.
And I was watching a YouTube review on it. Somebody literally said like with Callisto Protocol, it's reminding people of things in Dead Space. whenever there's a remake of Dead Space already out. Like, it would have worked. Like, this would have worked if it never. I think it would have worked more if people didn't know that there was a Dead Space remake coming out. But again, it's just getting to the point where there's a lot of things being made. So a lot of things just aren't going to hit because people's attentions aren't going to be focused enough for multiple games, and
Yep.
money's very tight these days.
Yep.
So maybe stop charging 70 for everything, please.
Good point, Flynn. Good point. You had to throw that in there, man.
But was Forspoken 70?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Even on
Yeah.
PC.
All right.
Which was another nail in the coffin for that game, man.
Well, there you have it. That
Yeah.
is Luminous Productions. Let's then transition into another Square Enix story, and that is Final Fantasy 16.
Well, before we do that, so actually, I wanted to dive into one other thing that kind of ties into Forspoken, if you don't mind,
Okay.
because the 16 is a little more exciting, and controversial, but we'll get to it. But the one thing that actually did come out maybe like 2 nights ago, but I either way, I messaged Flame. I was like, God has heard my prayers, and that is the CEO of Square Enix is more than likely getting booted from the company. They're holding like a hearing or like some meeting in June that's gonna talk about possibly
It's like a court trial.
exactly. So I just want to include that in there. Basically, the CEO is gonna be quote unquote resigning. He's being replaced by some other guy. I forgot his name, but we seem to be going from one hot plate to another because the new guy that they're actually going to be putting in, he's been at Square Enix for 3 years. I think his name's Kiryu or something like that. And his background is in blockchain technology and blockchain companies and stuff like that. So it seems
Oh no.
yeah. So it seems like what they're doing is they're replacing Matsuda because of the fact that obviously the downward trend that Square Enix has been going on and nothing really hitting, even in terms of blockchain NFTs, and seems to be replacing it with this guy who they think that might bolster it. So they're doubling down essentially on NFTs and blockchains with this new CEO. But we'll see how that goes because from all that we've seen, when it comes to anybody bringing up NFTs, they just get slapped in the face. So we'll see how that really spells for Square Enix in the future with that. But yeah, I think this was like kind of a long time coming, honestly, with Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GP, middling reviews for Valkyrie Elysium, and even Star Ocean. I liked it. Dialfield Flame, I know you're not a big fan of that game, and Strangers of Paradise, stuff like that. Now Forspoken, like, it was only a matter of time. I was like, this eventually gotta get this dude out of here, and get someone new. But lo and behold, it's someone invested in blockchain. So we'll see how far that takes them and where it's gonna go. But yeah, that's
I want to know, like, if it's like a lot of game failures are because he's pushing things out early or not. Because something like Octopath Traveler 2, I think, got all the time it needed to be the game that it is. Obviously, it's not as expensive, but after a while, you got to get something out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that Square Enix's like games future is very bright with Dragon Quest 12, the Final Fantasy 7 remake series, 14 obviously, right? Now 16 on the horizon. It's looking good for like their game output, but as far as like their actual trends in gaming itself, it's not great, and that's why they're looking to other avenues when it comes to making money. Unfortunately, it's an NFT and blockchains, but besides that, it's also looking to other game studios to help develop their games. So, but yeah. With that said, we can transition to 16 unless you guys have anything else to say about that.
No. I mean, yeah, let's get into 16. The previews for the game came out, and it continues to look really, really damn good, in my opinion. As someone with like limited experience with the franchise, it continues to be a day one for me. But what about you guys? I hear there's some controversy, and I'm assuming that has to do with the the move to real time combat, right?
It's actually quite a bit. There's quite a bit of controversy with this one here. Yeah, I'm just gonna say too that like when all the previews dropped, it was cool to see the buzz and hype for it, but I did not see a lick of gameplay. I know that game's a day one, so I'm just gonna avoid any of the footage that I can. But I did dive into the interviews of this game, and that's where like a lot of people were talking about whether it was come the controversy of it. But as far as like the details on the game itself, I think a lot of people are more hyped on this one because it is going back more to like the roots of Final Fantasy with like a gothic sort of fantasy style to it that older games had. Um, the combat system obviously is like point of contention because of the whole what is Final Fantasy, and a lot of people associate that with turn-based gameplay, but it's actually a little bit more varied than that. But in terms of the gameplay itself, so I mean, like it's looking great, man. They mentioned before how it's not going to be like an open world game, but it's more going to be like an open zone sort of game, and that's what they want to be really honest about that kind of stuff, and which is good because we've seen too many times in game development where they will give us sort of like this slice of a vertical slice of a game that looks incredible, and then it's actually not what it is once you actually get the game. Like they're being completely honest about it here. It's not open world. It's not gonna have super light and fun mini games like blitzball, fishing. Um, the side content's gonna be more involved with progression and new game plus and arcade mode for the combat system. So it's a little bit more like involved with like the main crux of this game is not just the story and the epicness, but also the combat system. But but Flame, what did you think of the previews coming out and what people were saying?
I didn't see much of it outside of that one kaiju-ish kind of scene that I saw floating around on Twitter, which it looks incredible. I'll give it that much. It's just not really that interested in this game. Even if it was to come to like PC day one, I would still be kind of leery on it because I was hyped for 15 because I knew it was versus 13 before it became 15, so I kind of accepted my piece that this was going to be an action Final Fantasy because I'm usually more of a turn-based even for the Final Fantasy stuff. This is like fresh off the heels and it's being more like a action-ish kind of thing, so I'm really going to see how it turns out, but I'm I would phrase it as that they're being very bold with what they want to do with the series moving forward. I'm just hoping that it sticks the landing and it would eventually shut people like me up, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm gonna send all the gifts and the videos to you when that day
Of course.
No, it's to your bigger point of because a lot of the controversy that was happening, at least online and through videos stuff like that, I've seen the Final Fantasy community, was the fact of if they felt like Yoshi P was definitely downplaying older games because of having light mini games or light moments in the game, or the fact that it wasn't turn based, or the
Mm,
case may be. And it's the one thing I always understood about Final Fantasy is that it differs for every game, and that's something that was apparent to me from the very start. Right, when I started with Final Fantasy VII, and not just like a turn-based game, but like it was more. It felt more like an action game. It didn't really feel like a turn-based game when I first played it. But it's sort of steampunk style versus Nine's super fantasy style told me that whatever next Final Fantasy game is coming, it's gonna be different from the last, and that's exciting to me. I think that's kind of like what the addictive nature is of that series is that you never really know what they're gonna be doing for the next game. So the fact that 15 was a more technologically fantasy, what was their slogan? A fantasy based on reality sort of game, and now we're going
yeah.
to strict medieval kaiju fighting fantasy, but this time it's a full on action game. Like that's exciting to me. So who knows what 17 is even going to be at this point, you know?
Yeah. And I think whenever I think we can talk about it now where they talked about the fact that it doesn't like the term JRPG because of a lot of stuff that surrounds the term in general and it's just like
Yeah, that was a
it's,
controversy from this week. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of get what he means by that, but at the same time it's like whenever you think of shooters, you think of Call of Duty, but you never think of the original Halos, you never think of BioShock and on that kind of stuff. So it's like you can't just separate it by terms. You kind of just have to guide people to the best stuff. You can't just immediately disregard a certain term because there's a lot of negative stuff that would surround it, that kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's and
Making-
like because I understood where he was coming from. I was a little more sympathetic on like actually using the term JRPG because I understand where he's coming from, but like guys like you and me, right, that are so like involved in those games, we never use that term as a derogatory. This is a weeb game, or it's lame, or it's not as good as the Western RPGs like Witcher or anything like that, right? We use it because it was a signifier of where it's from, and that's more of like a proud thing than it is like a derogatory thing. But that's not how they saw it.
But also because there's a I see I'm kind of in the middle on this, but also we use those because there's a clear distinction between a JRPG and say a Western RPG like a Witcher or a Fallout type game or something like, or even something like a Divinity Original Sin 2. Like there are clear differences between those two. They all fall underneath the umbrella of RPG, right? But yeah, there is a distinction between those two, I feel like.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's where I feel like that's a question I'm asking myself of like what's the real difference here, because there are distinctions, but I'm trying to really wrap my head around like, well, what is a JRPG? Because even stuff I was asking myself before, like, what really defines this genre of the fact that it's coming from a region and where the games are made? You know, is it
I
is
think
it?
it always just came down to style and how much content was in it because JRPGs in general, even like the original, like even like the original Dragon Quest games, they were much longer than games made by Western developers, and the way that they had their styles, you know, way different. Like Dragon Quest had the, Dragon Ball style and that kind of stuff, and for Final Fantasy, it was always like this very, like you said, like sometimes it'd be steampunk, sometimes it'd be sometimes it'd be fantasy, sometimes it would be just like action movie ish with like Final Fantasy VII, that kind of stuff. Like it always came down to the style and what they wanted to do with it, and how much content they could just pack into that bad boy, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. That's like the way I differentiate now. It's a little more broad. Of like from when I see JRPGs, that tells me it's a little bit more of a linear experience, a little linear and refined experience. Whereas something like a Mass Effect or a Baldur's Gate 3, that's where it's gonna be a little more custom in how you play that game, and that's how I kind of define the two now. But again, the definition is for different for everybody, and from people from obviously from Yoshi P and the Japanese developers, they saw it as something negative of like, oh, they're putting us down because we're not as good as a Skyrim or as a Mass Effect or something like that.
It's,
it is weird because like I feel like I don't know if we do this with any other media because like I feel like when I'm reading The Witcher, I don't say, oh, that's a Polish fantasy book, even though it is. I just say, yeah, that's a fantasy book, you know. So like
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like I don't do that with other media, but for whatever reason, it's just kind of like it's just something that we do in games, you know. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah. Like we
Um,
don't say it like Witcher is a PRPG. It's a lot of people define it just as an RPG or a Western RPG, but that's where like the region could just get confusing, and that's why the term JRPG itself is just confusing, because there's no really proper way to define it.
But as for the game itself, I think it looks incredible. I really like the Macho. I don't, or both you guys. I don't know if you saw the little detail of the so specifically about the summons, and there's like I'm assuming like the major like leaders of like these countries or whatever that like with this game specifically they're doing this thing where these people who have been like specifically cursed with something that they are the ones who are able to like turn into the giant summons like Ifrit and Garuda and Odin and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, I thought that was like a really cool like story thing that they're doing this time around. Explaining why you're able to do these giant kaiju battles as you put it earlier. Um, but yeah, I thought that looked really cool. The combat, like I'm okay with the switch to real time because they have I think he was like the lead combat guy from DMC5, and he's moving over to this project, and it just looks so goddamn clean, and smooth. Um, so yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just really because I watched Skill Up's video, and he was gushing about it, and yeah, I don't know, man. Everything that I see of this game just like continues to kind of like blow me away. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I love Gene Park's sort of take when he was talking on Twitter yesterday about how Final Fantasy has always tried to achieve the dream of avid children's combat since then because it's just so damn cool. And I'll even say parts. I'm gonna give it little chops here to Kingdom Hearts 2, because that game's action combat was everything you wanted from that time, man. It was fast, fluid, fun, epic boss fights. It was nothing we've ever seen for that style of game other than DMC, but DMC is a little more rigid, in my opinion. Where Kingdom Hearts 2 was straight up just put you in an anime sequence, just have fun. And this is where 15 tried to do it and was sort of there, but not really. It felt a little more on rails. 16 looks to be that one where it's like you got these abilities and these different summon magic moves and where the case may be, and you're gonna tie them all together and you're gonna have a bunch of fun. And the one thing that you and I both loved about DMC5 so was the combat. So
Yeah,
so
for sure.
so Flame, have you delved into Devil May Cry before? Actually,
I have not. I only know the memes from 5 because they were rampant at one point. I'm
the,
sorry.
the memes from 5. Explain, sir.
I mean, like, what is it? Virgil using that one meme, using that one attack that's like, I don't know, just don't ask me about it. Like, the memes were funny at one point, and it's hard to describe them now.
I
But,
need to look them up then, because that game was a romp, man. It was good.
it mostly had to do around, like, Bury the Light and that kind of stuff, like, using that song for memes and that stuff. But, for, obviously I know, like, Final Fan, like, wow. Devil May Cry, like, literally has, like, amazing action combat. I've seen it, so it's like, obviously they're gonna succeed in that way. I'm just, I guess I'm just like interested on where it's gonna land with the overall community because it feels like it's gonna be something that's aimed towards a general audience instead of Final Fantasy fans. I feel like that more has to do with the fact that, um, God, I'm blanking right now. That Square wants to be more true to what they want to do as opposed to what their fans want them to do, which is something that I've already kind of accepted myself as a previous fan of theirs, for the most part. Now,
Yeah,
It's a tricky line though
that's
that
fair.
you gotta
Yeah.
that you gotta balance because like I don't know.
yeah,
I feel like as with any like creative project, like it's funny because like I'm having Josh from Lognet help me in editing my book right now, and it's like that tricky line of like he's giving me a ton of feedback on it, and it's like what are the things that like I want to keep, but then there's also like some compromises where like he's giving me really good feedback. So like of course there are certain things that I should absolutely listen to, but then there are other things where I kind of like need to listen to my gut and be like, well, I feel strongly about like leaving this specific line or this specific scene in or whatever. So like I would assume that that's like amplified times 10 with like video games where like yes, like you obviously have to listen to the fans, but then there are certain things where you kind of have to like put your foot down. Where I'm assuming what Yoshi P is doing with the combat specifically, where he's like, no, like this is in terms of like evolving the franchise. This is where the franchise needs to go. So yeah, it's definitely got to be like a really tricky thing, I guess.
yeah.
And that doesn't really count out what you were looking for, Flame, right? Because they Square Enix does have turn-based games like Octopath and possibly Dragon Quest 12, but it could also be Final Fantasy 17 depending on who's the next lead for that. So that's why I say it's exciting that we don't really know what the next game could actually be. It could give us that turn-based glory that Persona 5 completely encaptured on, or even a little bit of Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which I'm going to say, Flame, play that game. That it's a little bit, it feels a little turn
Uh-huh.
based and action based at the same time. Only thing I'm going to surprise you in your Steam library, I'm going to force you to play that game.
hmm hmm But no, like I mean, like I said, I don't really have a necessary. It's not inherently bad for them to change the combat system. Like I said,
Hmm.
I played 15. I loved 15. You know that I'm fine with it. It's just more more like what they did with Final Fantasy 7, 8, 10, 13, that kind of stuff. Like just
Yeah,
very tactical in that regard.
yeah. I'm actually, even the change to 15 was surprising to me. Not really after the fact because it was versus 13, and I assumed it would carry that same combat, but because it was going to be a number title that was action based, especially after 13 and that trilogy and the combat in there, they had something. They absolutely had
Yeah.
something. But I guess like from the 13 trilogy, they felt like they expanded it enough. But if they would have kept that same style of gameplay that was action based, like you could see everything on the graphics from the like the how lightning's hair swing and like the material on her clothing, just in a turn-based sort of action like combat system. But I guess I just want to go with this. But either way, I'm gonna be playing this game, so it's gonna be day one. So, um,
Oh yeah.
but
Um,
but yeah,
last thing I wanted to touch on for this game
mhm.
was the accessibility that they're doing. I feel like is really unconventional and like unorthodox for games in general because it's not the thing that we're seeing with like a lot of Sony first party games, but it's like they're giving you. I feel like this may actually be more in line with like what From Software does, where they give you specific items that makes the game a bit easier. So like there was this one item that Skill Up was talking about that like drastically increases like I think like the timing with like dodges. I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so there's like a lot of things like that where they just give you items that makes the combat a bit easier for players who may not be as good with real-time combat. So, what do you think about that specifically as a sort of like solution to like accessibility?
What do you think, Flame? Did you see that, or was it your first time learning about it?
First time learning about it, but it sounds good. I mean, the more people that are able to play a game, the better. Like people that don't have a lot of time, or sorry, like don't have the timing down for stuff like parrying, dodging, that kind of stuff in most games. Like give them a crutch so they can enjoy the rest of the game. Something I loved about Hi-Fi Rush. It didn't restrict you to stay on beat in that game, so do what you can to make sure people can enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good point. I don't feel like this is really a solution, um,
Hmm.
in the grand
Ooh.
scheme of things, because well, the one thing we could take from Japanese developed game is that they're not all in on accessibility like the way Sony Studios does, where you just have a list of options to do whatever you want with the game. Um, this is more gameplay focused than anything else. But overall, it's when it comes to the actual accessories, I think it's good, like Flame was saying, because it is a solution to the gameplay mechanics where it is going to be a little more refined and it's going to be something that is not going to be for everybody. But people that want to experience a story, you have options to make it easier, which is good. Um, and overall, I think it's good just for the gameplay aspect. But when it comes to the actual accessibility of the game, of whether you can pick up the controller and just start playing, I think it's definitely not a step forward, in the way they think it is.
Yeah, it's definitely like I feel like they're putting like a band-aid over it.
That's the
It
best way
doesn't
to put it. Yeah.
completely, yeah, it's not completely like gonna solve the issue, but it's like a temporary thing, I feel like. It's nice to know that they're thinking about it, but they can definitely like take this a lot further than they currently are. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that is Final Fantasy 16. Macho, do you want to go over Evo before we kind of get out of here?
Well, one thing I want to touch on real quick with you guys, and something that me and Flame were battling in the DMs for, was the
Oh boy.
exclusivity deal on Final Fantasy 16. I'm sure you saw this.
Uh,
So We're
I don't think we went at it in the DMs though. I think you're lying.
nah,
Trying to
we
make it sound like I'm an Xbox fan, so I need to be mad about it. What this is?
yeah, no. We went to DMs because I was like, this is why you guys are not getting Square Enix games. and you're like, I don't care about those stuff, Macho. No, but it goes back to, it was more not like a PlayStation Square Enix thing. It was more of a Square Enix thing from what we saw before, where they said of sometime last year, I believe, and even some blog posts over the years that they were going to be looking to have help on AAA development for their games going forward, and we saw that firstly with Live Alive, right, where they told Nintendo like, "Hey, we can make this, but you guys gotta pay the money for it," and that's exactly what they did. And they're doing the exact same thing with PlayStation 5 and Sony, where Final Fantasy 16 is being co-developed with Sony in mind, and that's why it's an exclusivity deal. And the same thing that happened with Street Fighter 5 and Capcom years ago. Like the reason why Xbox players never got Street Fighter 5 is because Sony helped develop that game. That game would not have lived if it wasn't for Sony. And I don't know it's the same. I don't think it's the same thing really for Final Fantasy 16, but they definitely have a bigger hand in this pot than most other games. So it's assumedly that's why is it going to be an exclusive to the PlayStation 5, and why it's probably not going to come to Xbox after that. I don't know if we can say the same thing for Final Fantasy 7 remake series, but by the way, that's kind of like that's what the story is around with Final Fantasy 16 and why it's exclusive to PS5. A lot of people had those sort of questions or wondering what's going on, but yeah, and what I was saying to you, Flame, before in the DMs was that it's weird that Octopath Traveler 2 is not on Xbox, right? We had this conversation before, and
Yeah.
and you had to wonder if this was just a completely in-house thing, or if PlayStation and Nintendo had some sort of stake in this game's development. What's that going to mean for Dragon Quest 12 and all these other games releasing by Square Enix, where they're just going to take the bag, right? That's what happened with Capcom, where they were in dire straits, and any sort of deal that they had, they took it. Whether it's Street Fighter 5, whether it's exclusive content to Xbox 360 for Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I think it was, or for PlayStation, it got like exclusive characters. I think Square Enix can do the exact same thing because they just can't afford full-on AAA development or everything they got going on in those studios. So that's where we're going to see a lot of divisive exclusivity deals from here on forward from them. And I would say don't be surprised if Phil had to drop a huge bag for a Square Enix exclusive game, because of not only does it have to appear on Xbox Game Pass, but it has to be helped developed and marketed.
Oh, I'm just gonna say like the whole Octopath situation is still weird because, I mean, this is easy to point to, but I think there's more stuff that goes into it. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that Octopath 1 never made it to PlayStation
Mm-hmm.
is still kind of a mystery to me. It's like you'd think it would be on there by default. Like it would just be there naturally. And it never came to it even whenever Octopath 2 was announced. Never got like a port going for the first game to be like, hey, let's make this community, we'll give it 6 months and then put the second game on there and see if we got a more their audience for it. It always just felt kind of weird to me. But yeah, obviously whenever it comes to ports of games like that, it's always still frustrating to me because I'm playing Octopath on my PC instead of my Xbox, so I'm still a little salty, but I'm fine with it because I'm enjoying my time with the game anyways. If a company's gonna be able to invest $70 billion into it and buying an entire publisher that they never technically had any problems with, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why you're not putting any money forward for publishers that you do have problems with. It's
It's a valid point.
it's a little tiring. That's all.
No, it's a valid point. It's history repeats itself, right? Because
Yeah.
Square Enix moved from Nintendo to PlayStation from 6 to 7, and PlayStation never got those games. They never got the OGs for a while. So
Yeah.
it was just the same thing here with Octopath 1 and 2. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's the inconsistency. But yeah, that was it for the exclusivity stuff. Unless you have something to say about it, so but then we can move on to Evo after, unless you're done.
No, I'm good. So yeah, let's talk about Evo. I don't know what happened with Evo.
Yeah, so we didn't touch on it last week, but the lineup was announced, and there's a couple of changes happening with this one. So first of all, the games that are announced are Street Fighter 6, Guilty Gear Strive, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Tekken 7, King of Fighters 15, Melty Blood, Lumina or something like that, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and the biggest one that was a surprise to everybody, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. This was big. Blew up the fighting game scene. Everyone's super excited and hyped for it. And it's I wish I can go to this Evo, man. Like I just love fighting games, so it's good to see this. Like we have a great lineup for this year. They also announced that instead of top 8, it's gonna be top 6 because of the long wait times from last year. Like these tournaments, man, they ran for hours to the point where like I thought I was gonna watch the entire thing from when I was watching during the weekend. I actually had to go to bed because they were just going on for such a long time, and I'm sure like the actual tournament organizers get charged and fined for going over hours, stuff like that. So they're actually limiting the top like players from top 8 to top 6. So that'll be interesting to see. But overall, I think there's just a lot of hype behind this one because of all the games that are coming out, and I think it just ties back more to Sony like really pushing forward and on fighting games and giving the credit where Evil deserves for this year. I think it's gonna be incredible for people not tuning in. Gotta watch it, man. It's a lot of fun.
Blame, are you not a big fighting game fan?
You're talking to me? No, I'm not. Sorry. Like the only thing that I've really played fighting wise in the last couple of years was Soul Calibur. I think it was like 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. That was really about it. Like not too much of a fan of it, but yeah, the roster looks amazing, and obviously, like people really like fighting games, so I'm glad that there's more of a scene, more diversity, and you know, sounds like I'm just using blanket terms. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm pretty much the same way. So you're good, man.
Which
Don't
is
worry about
wild
it.
because the Sony pony over here, if there's a PlayStation fighting game, he'll be all over this.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
guys didn't care about Evo until PlayStation bought it.
Mm.
Oh
I would
man.
I would actually say that I still don't care about Evos.
I know.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
That's
But
wild to me. Okay.
yeah. But yeah, so I guess the last thing that we can kind of talk about is BAFTA. BAFTA had their nominations revealed for the awards on March 30th. I love watching these award shows almost more than like the VJs are cool, obviously for like the game reveals and stuff like that, but like I really love watching DICE and the GDC awards and BAFTA. Um, so yeah, this one is happening on the 30th. Um, I think. All right, so I'm opening up IGN right now. Elden Ring has 8 nominations. Cult of the
Ooh.
Lamb has 3. Macho, this one's for you. Marvel Snap has 2 nominations.
For me.
Um, here's something crazy. Stray has more nominations than Elden Ring. Has 9. Um,
You both are
Vampire
cat lovers, so this is wild to hear from both of your mouths right now.
Vampire Survivors has 5 nominations. Horizon Forbidden West has 6. Um, I think the big winner was well, not winner, but in terms of nominations, God of War has like something like I think 14. I want to
Sounds about
say,
right.
which I think like broke BAFTA's record for like the most like nominations. Um, so really quickly, I'm definitely not gonna go through all of these, but for the best game, which is like their version of like game of the year, is Cult of the Lamb, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Marvel Snap, Stray, and Vampire Survivors. Um, so I mean, it's really cool to see like just how different that is from like even Dice had like a different list than that, but especially VGA's was a little bit different because like VJ's didn't have Vampire Survivors, didn't have Cult of the Lamb, didn't have Marvel Snap. So
VJ's
that's really
VJ's had Marvel Snap, but that won best mobile game.
no. But in terms of like game of the year,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I
Yeah,
don't think a mobile game will ever get nominated for that. I'm not gonna lie.
right, right. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, and then the other the other one that I wanted to go to was the one for like best like performance or whatever, because I think BAFTA has it really like the way that they have it set up is I think way better than the other award shows because they have, if I can find it, um they have not only like the like best like lead. Okay, so here it is: performer in a leading role, and then they also have performer in a supporting role, which I think the other award shows should definitely do because I feel like it kind of sucks because like we have so many games that come out in a year, and to like only limit it to say like these are the best like five performers in a year, and then like no one else. Where I feel like the Oscars and like other things like that, they always do like here is best female or actress or actor or supporting actress, supporting actor or blah blah blah, right? They have like multiple categories for that stuff, and I feel like game awards in general can like really really benefit from having that too. um
Nowadays, yeah, for sure.
yeah, definitely. So performer in a leading role, the nominees are Elaine Mesa as Alejandro Vargas from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Charlotte McBurney as Amicia in A Plague Tale
Oh yeah.
Requiem. Right, she's so, I'm glad that she's on here.
She did a
Christopher Judge.
fantastic job.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
Just saying, like she did a fantastic job, and Christopher
Yeah.
Judge too. I just hope if he
Yeah.
wins, he doesn't sit up there for 20 minutes.
You should listen to his Dice award, because he won obviously best character at Dice. His speech in that is so funny. I think it was only like 5 minutes, but like at the end of it, he was like, he
God,
was
only
like
five.
only 5 minutes, and then he like walked off. Um, but like he made this joke where he was like, because like he brought his kid to Dice, and
Oh,
he was like, I have my son Cameron here, which makes him, and then he like pauses and he's like, my favorite son, and then and then he's like, and he's like, take some pictures, them tickets weren't free.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
like the whole crowd like burst out laughing. Yeah, his Dice speech is like way way better. So yeah, Christopher Judge as Kratos in God of War Ragnarok, Manon Gage as Marissa Marcel in Immortality, Siobhan Williams as Laura in The Quarry. Was that a standout performance for you, Macho, in that game?
Oh yeah, yeah, man. When me and Sammy played that game, Laura was a standout. We weren't.
hmm.
I would say it wasn't like our favorite game, right? Because it wasn't even like on my top 10, but it was still a really fun game. I think like the performances in that game are definitely worth, or definitely award worthy for sure.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so her, and then obviously Sunny Soljic as Atreus in God of War Ragnarok. And then performer in a supporting role. This one, and this one is interesting. So they have Adam J. Harrington as Sindri in God of War Ragnarok.
That's a good
Uh,
one.
Allison J. as Alva in Horizon Forbidden West. Macho, is
Wow.
that right? Is that the character you would have chosen from that game in terms of supporting role? Because I loved her character,
Wait,
but
did
like
Aloy even get a nomination
no,
for?
no, she didn't. She didn't. Which I'm not too
For
surprised. Like,
you?
I thought
Oh my
Ailey was like
god.
fine in that game.
Yeah.
I know, but it's like you choose a supporting character that I don't think anyone, from what I'm hearing from you guys, like it's not that big of a deal. But you're
I
not
agree.
even gonna try to. Yeah, whatever. I'm not
I
getting
agree.
into
I
this.
would have gone with Katalo, probably. But yeah, yeah, very very interesting that they went with her.
I agree with Alva though because Katala would have been my personal choice, but Alva was definitely a standout to me that made me like the game side content more because she was so quirky and like her performance itself was really memorable.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so they have Alva, and then they have Charlotta Molin as the One in Immortality. Um,
Oh
and
wow,
then
okay.
and then they have Daniel Bisutti as Freya in God of War Ragnarok. Leia de
Choice.
Leon Hayes as Angrboda in God of War Ragnarok, and then they have
Oh, that's
Ryan
a good one.
Hurst as Thor in God of War Ragnarok. So literally, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 out of the 6 nominations and supporting roles from God of War Ragnarok. I don't know how you choose from any of those. Like for me,
Yeah,
it would be between Freya and Sindri, but like God, like I would be okay with like any of those winning, to be honest.
yeah. I don't know. That is a tough one, man.
Yeah.
To me, it would have to
Um.
be Sindri's because that switch at the end of the game is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Um. Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. Obviously, they have a bunch of other you know, categories and stuff like that. Um, let me see here.
I
I
think
really,
to that point, I think there's this list is a little. I mean, I think it's a little better than the VGAs, but I feel like we're missing still some nominal games from last year, like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and
well, that's the thing. That's the thing that we always talk about, right? Is that with
Triangle Strategy.
for whatever reason, these award shows always leave out Japanese games for whatever reason. Obviously, they'll have the big
Yeah.
ones like the Elden Rings, but
Maybe
aside from
that's why
that,
Yoshi P hates the word JRPG. Is like, we need to get away from this term.
damn it, damn it. Um, but yeah, aside from like the big ones, you're not really gonna see a ton of that sort of representation in here. Again, unless you're a big Nintendo game or something like a From Software game. Um,
Which so surprised me because again, man, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was just so good and its delivery and everything, the storytelling, a lot of it's so good. So I don't know why it's not getting involved as much as it should. It's kind of hard. And same thing with Triangle Strategy, man. Like Flame, you know this. Anybody that's played that game absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Frederica or even Sarah Noah as a nomination because
100%, 100%.
Frederica especially, like she went through a whole damn arc, bro. I loved it.
Yeah, I talked about on the podcast before with our Game of the Year stuff, where like when we're talking about our best characters, I included Federica and not Sarah Noah, but I think it was just Federica herself because of her whole arc that she goes on with her people and her
And
races.
what's so weird is that it was kind of Oscar bait to a degree because it's like her entire lineage is an allegory for racism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they could have definitely seen that and be like, oh, we need to make sure something the political space needs to be in this thing or something like that. Like, that kind of stuff. Like it could have worked.
Yeah,
Just give them something, man. Come on.
yeah, I know because it's such a damn good game, but yeah, no, I wish something like those games were a little more represented in these
Yeah.
more nominal awards, um, but regardless of the fact, like the fans themselves know that the game is amazing, and I think that's all that the developers care about at the end of the day, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, and kind of last thing I'll say about this is that I really like that we, or at least in with BAFTA and then with Dice as well, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing with GDC, is that they don't have added fluff with the esports categories and stuff like that, right? Like no wonder why VGAs always takes goddamn 3 hours because they have like goddamn 20 categories that they need to get through. Whereas I feel like these other shows are like a lot more like they kind of like trim the fat, right? Like they have, obviously things like technical achievement and animation and narrative and performances and stuff like that. Whereas the VGAs is just like, oh, here's best esports coach, here's best esports team, here's best
Yeah,
esports player. I'm just like, you probably don't need all that.
yeah,
Um,
these categories are much better. Artistic achievement, evolving game, game design, yeah, all these stuff are much better.
yeah, for sure.
Will
But yeah,
Horizon
man.
Forbidden West actually win something? What do you think?
I it didn't win anything at Dice either, and the funny thing is that like when I was watching Dice, I was like, because let's just be honest, like God of War and Elden Ring was gonna smoke. Horizon was always in the category with either Elden Ring and God of War, and it's like let's be honest, like those two games will probably always get those awards over Horizon. And when I was watching Dice, I was like, the one thing that it actually has a chance at beating God of War in is animation. And if it doesn't win at animation at Dice, then it's not going to win anything. And it didn't win animation, so I was like, okay, it's not gonna win anything. I feel the same way here. If it's in the animation category, if it doesn't win animation, it's more than likely not gonna win anything, which it is what it is. So,
I guarantee you,
Yeah,
Stray is gonna win that. It's gonna win that category.
it's so weird because here's the thing, like I don't even like I played the original Horizon game and I didn't just wasn't a fan of it. But whenever I saw how beautiful Horizon Forbidden West was, I was waiting for them to win the best art direction in VGAs last year
yeah,
because I thought that was a shoo-in. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was a shoo-in because it literally does have the best looking world in my
yeah.
opinion.
Mhm.
Did they give that to God of War? I forgot.
I think it was Elden Ring. Give it to
Oh,
Elden Ring. I'm like,
okay.
okay,
Yeah,
it's not gonna win anything then. God damn.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it's the
Um,
same thing we're talking about with Octopath Traveler 2, Flame. Where like playing the game feels like a dream, right? It feels like it's not real sometimes, and that's how I felt with Horizon Forbidden West. How good that game looked, and it still didn't win anything.
Yeah.
they also have technical achievement in BAFTA, so like that's another one Horizon I feel like could win.
Are they in? Are
Um,
they in that one? I thought they weren't in that
yeah,
one.
yeah, technical achievement.
Is Elden Ring and God of War in that one?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like anyway. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I remember also like when I was watching Dice, I feel like I think it was like best art and God of War won that one, and I'm like, don't get me wrong, like yeah, the art is really really good in that game, but like that was the one where I was like, damn, like Horizon could have won that one too, but yeah. Anyway, again, it's just one of those things where it's like I'm looking at the one category that Roller Drum is in, and like I absolutely like Matcha, you know that I absolutely adore that game,
Oh yeah.
and it's in there, it's in its one sole category with Vampire Survivors. I'm like, I already know what game is gonna win that category. It's not gonna be Roller Drum. So it's like sometimes it's just like the hand that you're dealt. You're gonna be surrounded by games that are gonna be better than you. So it's like there's not much that you can do in that scenario. Then again, BAFTA, sort of like Dice, is like can sometimes be a little bit unpredictable. Um, this is the place
Because
that gave.
didn't Hades win over Last of Us 2 in 2020? I think that's what we're gonna
I
talk about.
I would not be surprised if it did. But like for example, like Returnal won Game of the Year last year at BAFTA. And then back in 2019, they gave best performance to Boulder from God of War and not Kratos, right? So it's like sometimes a lot of these places
Elder?
are
Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Also his speech was really really good too. Um,
I
but
can kind of see it. He was a good character.
he was, but like better than Kratos, that was crazy.
Yeah, I
But
could see you
yeah,
say that.
yeah. So again, these kind unlike the VJs where I feel like things are a little bit more predictable there, I think these other award shows are definitely like less predictable, which makes things exciting. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. It is going to be on March 30th. And then GDC I think is like the week before that. So yeah, we definitely got some more award shows to look forward to, which is always fun.
If you thought
But
people were
yeah,
crying about this last year, this year's gonna be a bloodbath because there's so many games this year
yeah.
that could be nominated. From what we've been playing the first couple months to the end of the year, I mean, it's gonna be wild. It feels like it's not as binary as it was last year, where like we knew God of War and Elden Ring would be solid winners.
Yeah.
But with this year, it feels like everything's on the table, and who knows what other surprise we're gonna get. So it's gonna be even crazier this year. I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, man, that is going to do it for the podcast today for DualShock Sense episode 92. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether it was live or after the fact. We always appreciate it. I want to remind everyone to go ahead and like the podcast, share it out. Don't forget all that good stuff. Um, Before we get out of here, we get started with these outros. Flame, thank you for coming, man. We really appreciate it. Tell everyone where they can find you and what do you got going on this week.
You could find me on Twitter at FlameLogNet, and for what I got going on, we literally just covered a lot of stuff for Wolong Fallen Dynasty. We have a lot of guides on lordsgaming.net. I'm going to be getting some stuff done for Octopath Traveler 2 and hoping to have a review out for that by hopefully the end of the month. And then next month, I'll be covering everything Deviri Paradox for Warframe related because that expansion looks absolutely amazing, like a third-person open world Hades. So
Cool.
keep an eye on that if you haven't played Warframe, and you don't need to play anything Warframe related to play that expansion. They will literally let you download it next month without. They'll let you play that without doing anything else in that game. It's actually kind of cool. And yeah, that's me.
Nice, nice. Um, I actually don't know. Do you play Destiny too?
I do, and I heard about Lightfall, and I'm like, oh, come on, I needed to get back to that because I wanted to play the campaign, and now I'm just like, do I want to now?
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I've heard. But yeah. So Macho, what about you, man? What do you got going on this week?
Uh, Birthday bash, fellas. I turn 29 tomorrow. Um,
Nice.
yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun birthday celebration this weekend since Sammy's was just last week in the middle of the week. We're actually gonna go with a couple of friends tonight to a karaoke bar, some Korean fried chicken, and just have a good old time in the city. Really pumped for that, and it's gonna be really fun. On top of Octopath 2, um, maybe Curious Case of Benjamin Button watching because I've been thinking about the movie like all week, so I want to dive into that and then see where I can fit in Creed 3 because I really want to watch that movie. So, and eventually RRR. I'll see if I could sneak that in sometime this weekend, but we'll find out since tonight is we're going out and tomorrow we have a couple stuff to do with Harley. So, but yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend. It's gonna be a fun weekend, and just looking forward to everything gaming too.
Nice, nice. Yeah. As for me, really not too much. I don't know what I'll be playing, to be honest. Probably nothing.
Are
But
you just like in limbo until Baldur's Gate 3 comes out in 8 months or
no,
six
it's not
months?
gonna be that long. I'll be there for Resident Evil 4 day one, obviously.
Oh right,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty close. But like I don't know, man. Like I got math this month, so like I feel like most of my time has been preoccupied with that first and foremost because it's just goddamn so much homework. So yeah, that's probably why I'm just like not in the mood to really play anything. Um, but
That makes sense.
yeah, but we'll see, we'll see. I'm always just like scrolling through the PlayStation store to see if I can if something like calls out to me, but nothing really ever does. So we'll see. Still looking at GT7 though. Still looking at GT7.
Yo, you better pick that
But
up
yeah,
before it gets off a discount, man. Just go for it.
I do, man. I gotta go to Best Buy to get it though, and that's like a 20-minute drive. Um, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me this week, and that's gonna do it for the DualShock and Sense crew. We will see you guys next week for episode 93. Hopefully some things happen this week. Until then,
Hopefully
just
Walt shows up, the coward.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, call his ass out.
He got intimidated by you, Flame. That's what.
Thanks
But
for
yeah,
having me on, guys. Seriously.
yeah, no problem, no problem. Anytime, dude. But yeah, until then, we'll catch you guys later. Peace out.
Peace.